Hey everyone, it's Jesse Williams here. We are coming to you with our first video from Sound Running to talk about some things affecting our sport right now and some of the questions and kind of misconceptions that have bubbled to the surface the last few months, especially the last couple of weeks. And just to kind of get the ball rolling and see what we can talk about and see what questions can be answered. Some of the things we want to talk about is healthcare for athletes, specifically. Reductions around women athletes during pregnancy. We want to talk about the whole process of going pro and things you need to look for, contracts, and kind of the old contractor versus employee conversations have been coming up quite a bit. I'm going to do my best to give you as much insight as I can. I'm not the authority on any of these subjects, but I do have 13 years experience working in the industry for a brand where we provided, the best network we possibly could for athletes, and we tried to build a system that gave them the best chance for success. And in that, we learned a lot. We did a lot of things that we thought were great, and they just didn't do much. And we did a lot of things that we didn't think that were that big, and athletes responded really well. And so I think there's a lot to be learned from that, and I hope that I can take some of that and answer some of these questions. And just do more videos like this where we answer questions and we talk about things that maybe aren't talked about enough recently. So if you hear anything, so contractors versus employees. This is an ongoing discussion, not just for athletes and the companies they represent, but for just the workplace and how it's changing every single year. You see more and more people doing freelance work and contract work, and this is a bigger problem and something that is kind of finding its way all the way up into state and national government, where people are trying to figure out how to tackle this issue because it's only growing. And I think that's a good thing for athletes because that means it's something that on a larger scale can get taken care of and the athletes can benefit from that. Sometimes track and field is so small, it just gets swept under the carpet. People don't pay attention. And I think the fact that this is a bigger thing for the entire U.S. and a lot of the world, it can actually help. And so specifically for track and field, though, and for the athletes that we're talking about, I think the roadblock for most companies, it's not that they haven't tried, it's not that they don't want to provide this for athletes, it's that it's a complete dollar and cents thing, it's a budget thing, it's a matter of, okay, there's only X amount of money allocated to marketing, allocated to sports marketing and earmarked for athletes, so how do we divvy that up? And if they decide, okay, we're gonna spend extra money to give these people full benefits and healthcare, that's a bigger package per athlete. Let's say, that's 30-40% more you're going to spend on an athlete that you were spending. And so it kind of becomes a discussion. And I know I've heard of several companies that are discussing it because they're deciding, hey, are we going to take, less athletes and have to potentially make cuts down the road or recruit less people, but we're going to give the athletes that we recruit even more money. And by that, I mean like healthcare and benefits and everything that goes with that. Or are we going to keep it the way we are and support as many athletes as our budget allots? And that's the kind of breaking point we're at right now. And I'm not one to say I would love to do both. I don't know that doing both is really an option at this moment. Hopefully there's more funding. I'm always for more funding in the sport, but the realistic situation is that most companies have X amount of money and you have to decide what's going to go into that. And there's other things within companies too around headcounts and, would this headcounts go into marketing and how does that compare to other departments? And so all of a sudden you got 20 athletes counting as headcounts inside of marketing, and that just, it's a more complicated issue than just all athletes need healthcare. I agree. But it's not that simple. And to be fair, there's a lot of things companies are already doing. A lot of these teams you see, and even specifically, and then even athletes who have individual contracts, they have support around physio, massage, chiro, even sometimes more than that. Like sometimes there's even room for extra things that come along, and companies are providing for that. But it isn't healthcare. It isn't a full-on, you can't take care of your family with this. And so that's something we need to work on. But it is a larger discussion, and there's more to it than just, we need to give athletes health care. I think everybody agrees with that. But I do think that it's not that simple, and I truly believe companies are working towards it. So that's good news. The next topic I want to talk about is contracts, athlete contracts, and the things you need to look for, and a little bit of what goes into them, and kind of do's and don'ts. So first things first is, I can't tell you how many stories I've heard about athletes signing agreements, not signing, but agreeing to terms based on an email or a text or like a screenshot, instead of seeing the whole contract and reading the whole contract, which I can't imagine. I mean, think about doing that in another scenario in your life, like a lease agreement, or a new job, and you're not reading through like how many vacation days you get and like what the benefits are. You wouldn't do that. I mean, I hope you wouldn't do that, but you need to read through everything. So my first thing is, get all of the offers that were given to you from your agent, lay them all down on a table, everything. Sit down with your family, sit down with a trusted advisor, or a lawyer, or just anybody you trust for something like this, just to get another set of eyes and go through these contracts. And this is also when your agent really becomes super valuable, because their experience, they can give you so much insight into things they've seen. Look out for this, make sure you're looking at this, and then ask them a million questions. Please ask them a million questions. There are not enough questions asked in this scenario. And that's how we get into a lot of scenarios where athletes years down the road they're running really well, but they've been reduced so many times they're not making practically any money, and they feel super used by a company. And that's a bad place for not only the athlete but for the company, because you have somebody out there that's not happy with the way they've been treated. And the reality is it's the contract, and that's what they signed. But I do believe that asking for more, asking questions, calling things out, and working with your agent to get the best possible offer, you're going to push this brand forward. They want to sign you. You are a commodity. You are special. They want to sign you. And if you are able to push and ask for the things you want, you're going to get more. A good example is what's happened this last week with women coming out and telling their story about their reductions or non-payment during pregnancy. It first of all blows my mind, because specifically I remember how well those women were marketed during their pregnancy and how valuable it was to the brand, because it was just this amazing story of running through pregnancy, and and everybody's already been following you, but now they're following you through this, and then now they're following you through your comeback, and they're watching you do it as a mother. And it's this amazing story, and these companies actually gained so much value from these women through these stories. And then you find out they weren't being paid, or they were being reduced, or it was being withheld until they showed that they were at the same level or something. It blows my mind, because in my opinion they were possibly more valuable during that moment. That was my personal opinion as somebody that was in marketing and watching some of this. I just thought, wow, this is like gold. These women they seem to be even more valuable at this very moment. And to find that out kind of blows my mind. But what those women did by telling their story is how many companies came forward this last couple of weeks, and how they have new policies. And these new policies have changed the landscape for women, now and down the road. Everybody that signs a contract now with these companies that have made changes are going to be taken care of. And so that's why these discussions matter. That's why talking to your agent about reductions and seeing if you can get those taken out, or asking for medical in your contract, or asking for more travel, or any other clause that you think like, hey, I want to make sure that my coach that I signed, to be with is going to be here. So I'm going to put in my contract that I'm only going to be here with the team as long as this coach. I mean, these sound like funny case scenarios, but take care of yourself. Take care of yourself up front. Take care of yourself in that initial negotiation, because once you sign that contract for the next, whether it's a 1 year, 10-year deal, you are in that contract. And no matter what happens, no matter how well you run or whatever, you're stuck. And I don't want to say it's stuck, but some people have been stuck. And so really think this through. What you sign is, it's important, and don't just take it through a text or an email. Ask for the full contract and sit down with people you trust. Ask other athletes too. Talk to other athletes. Say, hey, is this normal? What's this? And make sure that you're getting the full picture. I'm blown away at how few athletes do this. It's way too important of a decision. So please take your time. And one of the other pieces of this, to me, is you have to decide what kind of brand you want to represent. Brands are now held to a higher social standard, as we've seen these last couple of weeks. When brands get called out now all the time for almost anything, and especially if it bubbles up through the general public, athletes are saying, well, what does the brand think about this, and who do I work with, and what do they think? And this is really important, because the relationship you have with this brand, and even with the people you work with, is unbelievably important. It could mean so many different things for you in the future. And in my opinion, having a good relationship with the brand and making sure they have your same belief system will make your career so much more enjoyable. And you will have people in your court, and you'll feel like you have a family instead of a boss. And that's kind of, it's funny, because the people that write the contracts, honestly, they're on the hook for who you are. So why shouldn't they be on the hook for who they are? And so I think that supporting the brand you're working with and getting on board and having that symbiotic relationship is the only way it's going to work. If you're not on the same page, it is going to be a long, however many years you're under contract, and it's not going to benefit your running. I've rarely seen a case where an athlete was at odds with their company and they ran well. I can only think of one or two where they've been at odds with the company and it worked for them. Everybody else, it's a hard sport, and you don't want to be at odds with the people that are supposed to be supporting you. So please, look through these things, and think about, like I said, think through the contract, think through the agent you're working with, think through the company that you're representing. Take your time with this. Talk to trusted people, and make a more informed decision. We're making this video because there's stuff that we feel like we can shed light on, and it's not like it's brand new, never heard information, but the goal is to create a more of a dialogue and to answer your questions and to get back to you with anything that's popping up, and to be able to potentially give our insight from the world that we've been in and we've seen. And like I said, not an authority on this. It's just when you've been in the industry and you've seen a lot of these things, and you've been on the other side of contracts, and you've worked closely with the athletes, and you've heard their concerns, but you also know the concerns of the company sponsoring them. It does put us in a unique perspective to at least give some insight into these topics, and to hopefully get the ball rolling and start more conversation. The more conversation, I think, pushes the sport forward, and our sport needs a drastic push forward. Women came out and told really heroic stories this week, and look how much that already pushed the sport forward. So more conversations like this, more questions answered. So my goal with these videos is to hopefully inform and to give new athletes going pro the information that maybe they aren't given, and to bring up problems that there are in the sport that we can maybe fix, and to answer any questions you guys might have. So my task for you guys is to tell me something that I missed here, ask me questions that I may or may not know, or I'll have to ask other people. But my goal is to answer your questions and to do more videos like this, especially when there's stuff in the sport coming up, and we feel like we can offer some kind of insight that maybe helps the conversation along. So thank you very much for listening. Like I said, like us down below, and let us know what else we can do for you.